person. The soul is the real you, the real me.
At the point in which they are presently?
Mm-hmm. You have a soul, I believe. I have a soul. We all have souls, which means we have personhood, which means you're not just a complex biochemical reaction. I mean, think about it. If there is no God, you and I are simply robots.
Flesh puppet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all we are. Yeah. And it's really fascinating to listen to an atheist, a secularist, a materialist insist, oh, no, there's more to us than that. Really? Sorry. If there is no creator who creates us, then we are matter and energy evolved to a higher order. That's good to hard science, which means there's no soul, there's no you, there's no me. There's a complex chemical reaction in our brains that we call ourselves, but that's an illusion because the real you is simply a chemical reaction. Now, my experience of life says that's baloney. My experience of life says there is a real you. That's why I hold you responsible for the way you treat your mother, your friend, because I don't think you have to do what you do because you've been chemically programmed. Instead, you're a human being created in the image of God with a soul, which means a free will, the ability to love or to hate, the ability to forgive or seek revenge. You have a rational mind. You don't have to think a certain way. You don't have to believe something. You choose to. Well, the only way that can be real is if there is more to you than your complex chemical reactions. There's got to be a soul, a you, a me.
But a me and a you is partially made up of our human experience.
Exactly.
So how much does a human experience play into what your soul becomes?
You bet. All right, so if my dad had been an alcoholic, and you ask me, Cliff, why are you an alcoholic? And I say, well, because my dad was an alcoholic. And then I've got 5 younger siblings, none of whom are alcoholics, and you ask them, well, why are you not alcoholics? And they say, because my dad was an alcoholic. See, what we're getting at is, yes, we're all influenced by the environment we grew up in, no question about it. But then we choose what we're going to do with that environment. And I can choose to use my dad being an alcoholic to justify me being an alcoholic, or I can say, you know something? I'm never going to touch a drop of alcohol because my dad was an alcoholic and I saw how destructive it was in his life. So we're still free, although we're influenced by our environment, but we're free. I don't have to love you. I can hate your guts. I don't have to forgive you. I can seek revenge. I don't have to do either.
Based on what you guys believe, is the essence of the soul the deciding factor upon whether a person goes to heaven or hell? Or what is the decision making?
You and I will go to heaven because we choose to live our lives together with God.
You sure about me, bro? Comments are going crazy right now.
Jesus promises you, Logan, eternal life if you put your faith in him.
Okay.
And his resurrection from the dead points to him being reliable. He's not a quack. I mean, if Jesus had said, I'm going to die and then rise from the dead, and if he wouldn't have pulled it off, I would not believe it. But the fact that he died and then rose from the dead historically is solid evidence that he indeed is reliable. If you die and rise from the dead, I promise to listen very carefully to everything you have to say. Jesus died, rose from the dead. That's why it's a no-brainer. You got to take him serious.
Well, dude, I've been on the road for ages. My face, my body, I'm a mess. I need to clean things up.
Well, Manscaped's today's sponsor right here in luck. Guys, Father's Day is coming up. If you haven't have a gift yet, we got one for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Maybe your pops has had a bush since the 70s, and that's okay. Our friends at Manscaped have crafted the total package for a special day, whether it's for the boys downstairs, his beard, or even the best pair of underwear out there. Manscaped has his bases covered. Head over to manscaped.com. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Logan. From daddy to zaddy, trust Manscaped. My dad, Greg, for example, he's been rocking the beard look for years. Handsome guy. Vin Diesel looking mother fricker. No swearing. The beard trimmer that your dad's been using since you were in grade school, yeah, it probably needs upgrading. Introducing the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, the complete beard maintenance kit for all the beard kings. It's all in one kit. It comes with a beard hedger, Manscaped's most advanced beard trimmer, as well as shampoo, conditioner, oil, balm, and balm for his beard. It also comes with a brush, comb, and scissors so he can style his beard and mustache like the true gentleman he is. And the Shears 3.0 is the 5-piece precision men's nail grooming kit that any father needs to stay on top of his self-care. Professional-grade stainless steel tools, sized and shaped and styled for the task at hand. 20% off plus free shipping with the code Logan at manscaped.com. That's 20% off free shipping with the code manscaped.com. With the code Logan. Never forget where you came from. If you know what I mean. Happy Father's Day from Manscaped.
Beyond that prerequisite of acceptance of Christ into your heart and a continued path of following Christ as a way to gain access to the kingdom of heaven, are there any other prerequisites beyond that? Or on the flip side, what are some ways to get your ticket canceled? I want to talk a little bit about mortal sins today and how forgiveness applies to those. And especially if you guys have any mortal sins that aren't listed. For me, there's a guy on the plane today that was watching YouTube videos with no headphones on full volume.
Of course.
At 6 a.m. And he was just, he thought it was okay to watch music videos, Latino music videos at 6 a.m. in full volume. In my eyes, you go directly to hell. Like, there's no coming back from that. I walked over, I said, hermano, this is not okay. They're giving out free headphones. Why are you doing this to me? I feel like you're directing this directly at me. So what are the mortal sins that people have to avoid, or I mean, we know some of them, assuming murder, and I learned about some of this, but refreshing.
Yeah, can you list them out? And by the way, the mortal sin means if you commit this, you're doomed. You're not. There's no chance.
Or
Good.
is that what it is?
When Jesus was dying on the cross, 2 thieves were hung on either side of him. They were criminals. They were guilty. The first thief turns to Jesus and says, "Come on, miracle boy, get us off these crosses, and then based on that, we'll believe in you." Second criminal turns to the first criminal and says, "You fool, we bleed and die here because we deserve it. But this Jesus, he's the innocent, holy, pure Son of God." And the second criminal turns to Jesus and says, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." Now, right there, Jesus' value system is on the line. He could look the guy in the face and said, "Get down off of here to say 12 Hail Marys, work in a soup kitchen, and if you do a good enough job, maybe you'll make it." He didn't say that. Instead, he said, "I tell you the truth, today you'll be with me in paradise." And that's grace. That's amazing grace, God's undeserved offer of forgiveness, his generosity. Now, when you read the Gospels, and I would encourage you guys to read them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because they're the eyewitness testimonies about Jesus, what you'll notice is Jesus reserved his most scathing words for religious hypocrites. And the reason is because hypocrisy is pretending to be someone I am not. If I say that I believe in Jesus and talk with you about God and then walk out of here and seek to womanize, you'd point your bony finger in my face and say, "Cliff, you're one flaming hypocrite." And you'd be right. So Jesus points out that I'm not going to heaven because I live a good life. I'm going to heaven because of his grace, his offer of forgiveness. But if my faith in him is genuine, it'll be shown in the way I love him, honor him, and obey him.
But wouldn't that put a lot of, I guess in this, the way you're describing, so-called Christians or Christians at risk, because we are all imperfect Christians. So at the end of the day, do we all in some way become those religious hypocrites that you're describing?
So you and I are playing ball together. You block my shot. When you land, I elbow you. I say, "Man, I'm really sorry. Would you please forgive me?" You say, "Yes, Cliff, thank you. I forgive you." Second, you block my shot a second time. You come down, I elbow you. All right, now either I'm a hypocrite or I've got a bad habit with my temper. A Christian is someone who has bad habits, and I got a bunch of them. I've had to pray for forgiveness for my pride, for my greed, every day almost, basically. It doesn't mean I'm a hypocrite. It means I got some bad habits. A hypocrite is someone who's playing a game, a stupid game. If I say to you, "I'm sorry for elbowing you, but I can hardly wait to do it again," you don't have to have a PhD in psychology to figure out this is one hypocritical dude.
Got it.
It sounds like intent. Sounds like intent matters here.
Well put. The heart, exactly. Intent, motive, exactly.
Because I've seen basically what you just described with Christians, like or anyone
Yeah.
pretending to be someone
Yeah.
they're not. Like that's
right.
that happens, but I don't know how often it happens where you find someone who's doing it intentionally. Like I know people who I just think that's just like how they are. They might have a bad temper, they might snap, they might be willing to forgive the next second. But I mean, there's people even just right now parading around on social media, being like bad actors, just not good humans, deceitful, lying, and then they're using Jesus or their beliefs as a crutch to fall back on, and they go from bad to good instantaneously, and people buy it.
Yep.
Where does that person sit in your mind?
I would never judge that person because I have no idea
Fair.
where their heart is.
Fair.
I see their hypocritical living, and yet again, I don't know if they're going to repent later or not, like the thief on the cross, easily.
So is that a bit of like a cop out? To be honest with you, I wonder if someone can just live a whole life being
bad or acting immorally, and then at the last second they're on the deathbed and they're like, I accept you, Jesus, and then that's a pass for them.
Isn't that the freakish thing though about grace? I think we all want forgiveness, even for our enemies, and it's only Christianity that says forgive your enemies. Historically, it's been the only faith that says that. And so, when Christ says forgive your enemy 70 times 7, like, I screw up all the time. I want that. Like, that's super attractive to me. Not the Hinduism approach where I'm going to come back as a cockroach if I do X, Y, and Z wrong. So I think that is what is so important in understanding Christianity. I think there's two ways where we can really use God. One is you just turn away from him and say, screw you, God, I'm out of here. The other way is I'm going to use you by being a perfect person, because then I get you in my debt, if that makes sense. I'm a perfect person, so you owe me, God. God of the universe, who created everything, you owe me. So that's why I think it's bad to try and live this perfect life and say, all right, God, give me that ticket.
I'm saying someone who doesn't live the perfect life. I'm saying someone who leads a life of deceit, lies.
Is there an example of the person that you're discussing specifically? Because it almost feels like you're talking about a certain
No. There was when I was talking about someone parading around on social media, but like to me, that like, dude, I don't know if there's like a worse type of person who's using God as like a shield to put merit to their bad actions. That's horrible.
Right on.
Does that turn you off, though, to the real God?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No.
Because a lot of people, it happens. Like thousands.
Actually, you know what? If I'm being not like turn off isn't the right word. It just makes me doubt, and I don't think that's like
the
unusual.
Doubt the person or doubt God?
It makes me. It just. I don't know. I mean, definitely doubt the person. Not doubt God, because again, I believe in God. That belief's not going away. It's just like, okay, this is a bad human being who is using Jesus as a protector to convince other people who believe in Jesus that he's a good human being. That's horrible. And by the way, who am I to say this is a bad human being?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
At a base level, like, do you guys believe that there are bad and good human beings?
I think it's real clear that we all do good at times and we all do bad at times. One of my favorite 60-minute shows was when Mike Wallace years ago interviewed Yehiel Denur, survivor of the Holocaust, and he showed Yehiel Denur during their interview a small clip of Yehiel Denur entering the courtroom where Adolf Eichmann, the guy who slaughtered millions of Jews in Dachau and Auschwitz and Buchenwald, and Yehiel Denur walks down the aisle in the courtroom with Adolf Eichmann sitting behind the glass in the front. He walks up to Adolf Eichmann, looks him in the face, and collapses, weeping. And Mike Wallace looks at Yehiel Denur and says, "What were you feeling? Were you just overcome with the evil of this guy?" Yehiel Denur said, "No. When I looked into the face of Adolf Eichmann, I realized I was looking into the face of the typical human being. There's a bit of Adolf Eichmann in all of us." Okay, that's what Jesus pointed out. Jesus pointed out we all do good at times. We're all created in the image of God. We all have conscience, so every single human being does good at times. And we all do evil at times. That is why every single one of us needs Jesus Christ, his forgiveness, his grace, his strength to change.
Look, the power of forgiveness is undeniably incredible. It's also undeniably hard.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's an impossible thing to do sometimes, or so it feels at least. Have you mastered forgiveness? Are you still working on it?
I am still working on it. I have discovered that when someone hurts me badly enough, I cannot just forgive them once. Because tomorrow the memory will come back. And I can't believe what they did to me. And I'm going to have to forgive them a second time. And then next week it's going to come back again, and the week after that. So the people who've really hurt me the most in life, I've had to forgive over 100 times.
And
Who are these people? Who are to hurt Cliff or connect? Why would you ever want to hurt this man? If you're watching this and you've done harm to Cliff or his son, I don't forgive you. I'm still mad at you, to be honest with you. I'm mad. I don't even know who you are or what you did, but I'm mad. Dude. What are some examples, like, without getting too personal, of the type of forgiveness you've had to offer? And how did you get there?
I guess one of the first examples is when I went to college, I wanted to play major college basketball. So I went to a college that was D1, And I barely made the team. I was the worst player on the team. In fact, when the team went out to play UCLA, the coach came up to me in the locker room before and said, Cliff, I'm really sorry. There's not a seat on the plane for you. So they left me behind. So that gives you an idea where I was.
Oh, that's horrible.
But there was a guy who would stand on the sideline and he would mock me every time I would make a mistake. And to tell you the truth, I tried to love the guy. I really hated his guts. And I tried to love him. I tried to forgive him, but I failed miserably. And it was not till I got to the point in my life where I said, Jesus, I can't love this guy. I hate him. I need you to give me the strength to change because I can't stand this guy. He's standing between me and what I want to do most in life at that time, play major college basketball. And Christ did. He gave me the strength to love a guy who in my own strength, no way was I going to love him.
You know what's interesting as well? I think hatred and just like resentment in general, anger is like it's heavy. It's a heavy feeling to hold in your heart. So I always try to apply like a bit of logic maybe to what I do in my actions, and carrying that around I don't think serves me in a positive way. And so in the hardest moments of my life where I've had to forgive people or move on, besides the fact that I actually looked at Jesus as an example then, because I think he's just
A poster
child
forgiveness.
of morality, and like, you know, he did it. One of the hardest moments of my life, I was literally like, what would Jesus do here? And it served me very well. But besides that, I don't know if I want to always be moving through life with that anger in my heart, and that's not always easy for me, Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my dad's a fireball. He likes to correct people who wrong him. I'm a fighter at heart, and sometimes I can be vengeful. Sometimes I can want revenge. More so than that, even. I want justice. You know. I want.
Batman.
No, but seriously, if I could, I would be a vigilante. I swear to God, I'd put on a cape and run around New York City and like just like beat up bad guys. But I can't because it's illegal. But I can hold people accountable to the best of my ability, and it's something I try to do not only for other people who wrong me, but also for myself. I made a huge mistake in 2017. I'm sure you guys know about it. It was in Japan, and like I had to take a serious look at myself in the mirror and decide who I wanted to be and how I became this person who did that thing. And the amount of accountability that I took for that, and the teachings that led me and brought me through, now I carry every day. I think accountability is like a super powerful tool, and I think, you know, religion, specifically Jesus, can help with that. I want to touch on the soul thing really quick, because this has always intrigued me. Okay, so the soul is the person that can be shaped by human experience. So like if you were to like run a simulation of like Cliff, 100 simulations of the life of Cliff in some future distant world, do you become a pastor in all 100 of those simulations? Is every one of those simulations, is Cliff a good guy? Especially if the human experience that each Cliff experience or goes through is different. And then does your soul become a different thing? And then also, I ask myself, like, okay, what is the soul? Because you're saying it's shaped by human experience, but like, what about like a baby or like a child? Like, say a child passes away and they're like, you know, essentially a blank canvas. What happens to that soul? What if that human hasn't accepted Jesus because he's 4?
Well, that's why they baptize babies, right?
Well, I'm convinced, though, that babies who die are going to be in heaven
Yeah.
because of the way Jesus treated children. He said, let the little children come to me, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven. So God is a compassionate God, and obviously a baby has not sinned. They've not rebelled against God, so I think they're going to be in heaven. But I think you raise a great question when it comes to Cliff. If there were 100 different scenarios over the next 1,000 years of you, would you always become a minister? I don't think so, because that smacks of determinism. It's in the stars. It's written in the stars. You have to do this. You have to go down this path. No. When I fall down a set of stairs, I don't pick myself up at the bottom and say, phew, glad that's over. No, I pick myself up at the bottom and say, idiot, pick up your feet. Don't stumble down the stairs. It's really painful. In other words, it's not been predetermined. That's this whole issue of free will. That's why I hold you responsible and you hold me responsible for what I do, for what I say. because you know I don't have to do it.
It's not a script.
Exactly. It's not a script. This whole idea that God writes on a piece of paper, what you and I are going to do tomorrow, locks it in a bank vault, and then you and I have to do what's written on the paper. That's determinism. That's fatalism. No. No, we're human beings created in the image of God, which means God partially limits his power by giving us a free will, and then we choose what we do. But God does hold us responsible. That's why I love what you pointed out about the importance of responsibility. But you know, Logan, you and Jesus are, I think, a little closer than you might realize when you talk about justice.
That's gonna get clipped up.
Okay?
That was,
Justice.
that's going everywhere.
The reason is, why did Christ die on a cross? He didn't die on a cross because God is lovey-dovey. He died on a cross because God is just. And because God is just, the penalty for evil is death and hell. And Christ went to the cross, paid that penalty. Why? Because God's lovey-dovey? No, because God is just. The penalty for human evil must be paid. Oh, that's not cool. That's not cool. Oh, that's very cool. I understand you're an expectant father. Little baby
Yeah.
coming into the world?
Little baby
Your
girl.
mom was bragging to me about it.
Yeah.
Little baby girl.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, Logan. Now let's talk theoretically.
Okay.
Let's say somebody murders that little baby.
God damn it, Cliff.
Didn't even get a chance to do anything. Didn't even make one video.
Good response, Logan.
Horrific. I wasn't expecting this. Clip.
All right. Good response.
No, that's the hook.
Sorry, Grandma.
Yeah, sorry, Mom.
Ex-grandma.
She didn't make it.
Damn, dude.
Okay, I love your response. Why? Because you know very well that if the police or the judge lets that dude off scot-free, your baby does not matter. Now, what's fascinating is the way so many secular people will say, well, God's just love, so there's going to be no judgment. Really? So God doesn't judge the guy who murders my child? That's a clear statement on God's part. Your child, Cliff, does not matter to me. Therefore, I will not judge the guy who murdered your kid. Well, let's get one thing straight. God doesn't care about your kid. Your kid does not matter to God. And that's a lie. Jesus said, no, God does care about every single one of us, which is why when we hurt each other, when we rip each other, when we cut each other off at the knees, God will judge us for that because he loves us because we matter to him. Does that make any sense?
It totally makes sense. But again, it just sounds like intent really matters. It sounds like. But I've also had people tell me in like the mistakes that I've made, like sometimes intent doesn't matter. At least in this human world, sometimes your intent doesn't matter.
What's that saying? The pathway to hell is
paved with the best intent?
Yep.
Yeah. So it sounds like God is like or when I say God, that's Jesus as well. Jesus, God, Holy Spirit,
And the Holy
as well.
Spirit?
Yep. And the Holy Spirit
Trinity?
and the Father.
Okay. Because just for the listeners, like when I say God to them, it might be a different God.
We got to talk about that too.
Yeah, we got to talk
Continue
about it. It sounds like he is the measure of whether or not someone is morally sound, and he is constantly all-knowing and calculating about someone's intent. So you can't hide from God, essentially. Like if I know like I'm playing the basketball game, like you mentioned earlier, and Mike goes up for a layup, and he blocks my shot, and he comes down. Maybe I don't give him that elbow, but maybe I stick my foot out later in the game. I know it was intentful, but
That's how my spleen was ruptured when I was 16. So
actually.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
what was the person's name?
I believe it was TJ. Unfortunately.
So TJ, God knows that TJ
Bless you.
tripped Mike on purpose, and Mike had to get his spleen replaced, and that's why he ended up doing heroin. Is TJ being judged by God in that moment, and can he hide his intentions from God?
God is watching. God is watching us always. Oh man, that's a really bummer idea. Oh, no. God is watching has been one of the most powerful civilizing influences in the world. Because when you live your life understanding God is watching me, then you got to ask yourself, should I really do this? Or should I not? I begin to reconsider. I begin to ask myself the difficult ethical question, is this the wisest, best thing to do in this circumstance, or is it not?
I ask that question constantly.
Good.
And to a point of obsession. And I get very scared when I even nowadays I've had a bit of a change on my thoughts on pornography and masturbation. I want to talk about some of that stuff because I do feel that presence. I really do, and constantly ask for forgiveness both in the morning and at night when I pray. But the way that you described some of the sins that we were just talking about now, we were talking about murder and some of those things. It sounds like the most judged things by gods are human on human sin. Is that too broad of a statement, or would it be acceptable to assume that God is not mostly, but severe in punishment on what we do and how we treat each other specifically?
Well, if you don't have justice, you can't have love. And if you don't forgive somebody from your heart, you can't have a true type of justice. I don't believe so, at least. Because if you're going to reconcile, for example, with somebody who you really hate, back to this topic, you have to forgive them in your heart, and then you can seek justice and then reconcile. You can't just seek justice for what they did to you and then say, whatever, we're reconciled. No, you have to have that level of forgiveness first. And if that doesn't occur, then there's no ultimate reconciliation. And I think this is kind of off your good point, but I just want to touch on, I think in our culture today, it's becoming more and more individualistic, where it's all about me, it's not about community. And so when it's all about me and my own personal ambitions and dreams and where I can get, we see the breakdown, if that's true in a marriage, like really high percentage chance that is going to end in divorce because it's about my dreams. And if you get in the way of my happiness, we're done. But you see it in society. And so when that occurs, forgiveness is like impossible, because to your point, you're going to be constantly warring against different people who bump up against you. And if we can't get to the point of saying, no, it's about community, it's about self-denial, like Christ talked about, not about self-assertion, then we're gonna never forgive. Like if it's about me, my dreams, and you can't forgive. So that's why we see forgiveness, which I love that you put such a heavy emphasis on forgiveness. It's becoming completely obsolete in our culture today because it's individualism. Completely.
But by the way, it's like, man, I feel like at least
cancel culture, right?
On X, dude, everyone is the judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah.
Why, and how did this happen? Where everyone thinks that they have the ability to presume someone good or bad, and then be vocal about it online.
Right.
It's a weird culture, man. Yeah. Forgiveness is becoming harder and harder. Admittedly, even like for me,
Right.
The world is headed in an interesting direction, which is why I actually love religion for this, because in a world where like it's just so hard to understand yourself and be guided by, I don't know, your friends, your parents, things you see online, your environment in general, this code, this Bible, or any scripture from any religion usually is a good testament as to how someone could live and lead a good, healthy, positive, beneficial life.
Do you see religion as something totally different? Like, is this historically true? Did Jesus Christ actually die on a cross? Was he actually risen? You look at Bono, for example. He says 35% of the world is Christian. Well, if Jesus Christ claimed to be God, I work with schizophrenics oftentimes. They claim to be Jesus Christ and God. And so then he was a schizophrenic. Well, Bono would say, you truly believe that a schizophrenic could turn 35% of the world Christian, change that percentage? I mean, maybe, but the likeliness is very small. And so you have to come through Christ and believe that he is actually the Son of God. Then you get to, okay, how am I going to grow in the fruits of the Spirit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. But it has to come through first believing like,
true faith.
He's the Son of God, or he's not. And so just drop this whole thing.
I appreciate your practicality. And by the way, the resemblance that you two have is uncanny. It's incredible. And
the 30s, you become your dad. Right?
Yeah, please don't tell me that. Sorry, Greg. So long, my hair. And actually, the first thing you said to me, the first response to his question was, you said, I don't know. And I think a lot of hard questions. I think there's a lot of maturity and nobility in a human being able to say, you know what? I don't know.
But that's a strange thing about this scenario, and I've heard you speak about this in the past. No one is ever going to be able to bring to you this bulletproof proof that God exists or that Jesus exists, right?
Which, to answer your question, when I say when convince me to become Christian, is it synonymous with like saying convince me to become a Republican? I guess what I am looking for, what I have always struggled with, is like the proof per se. Like I haven't really had like a come to Jesus moment that I know some people have had. I haven't had and have abided by the guidance of the Bible to lead me to like a happy, successful place in my life. I just try to be a good person. I try to work hard and I try to love the people around me as much as I can. And by the way, I fuck up a lot, but I guess like I started by saying I'm just like unwilling to subscribe to a religion, because then I guess this leads into this conversation. Why Christianity? There's so many denominations out there, and to be able to like put your foot down on one, especially when they all have such positive teachings for the most part, it's just so hard for me. I just don't know if I'm willing to make that assertion just yet. So why Christianity is the question.
All right. First of all, you're right. I can't prove God. But Logan, I think you've got God bearing down hard on you through your mom. I think it's real clear that your mom loves you.
Is that true, Mom? She holding the cross. Can you at least get a thumbs up or something?
She just holds up,
Holds up the cross.
like, can't discuss the love of Logan.
But here's a cross.
I do love Jesus.
I don't think that your mom's love for you is simply a chemical reaction. I think your mom has made a decision over your entire life to care for you, to provide for you, to protect you, to sacrifice for you. That is far beyond an animal instinct. That is a free decision your precious mother has made to really love you, to really care for you. Love, the experience of love, points us to reality, including some type of God. Okay, then the next question is, but who is this God? And that's where Jesus Christ, Muhammad, Confucius, Buddha, Siddhartha, all the avatars of Hinduism come in, all claiming to be revealing God accurately. But the historical evidence is Jesus lived a sinless life. He never sinned once. In John chapter 8, he could look into the faces of his enemies and say, which one of you can prove me guilty of sin? And his enemies were silent. Secondly, he taught amazing ethical teachings that I think all of us respect highly. The Sermon on the Mount is obviously ethical genius. All right, profound ethical genius. The Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. So his lifestyle, his ethical teachings demand respect. Thirdly, you watch him die. At the moment of his most excruciating pain and agony, nailed to a wooden crossbeam, instead of cursing his enemies the way I would have, he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Well, my respect for him skyrockets. But fourthly, and most importantly, 3 days after he dies, he physically, bodily rises from the dead, and over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who see him, different times, different places, risen from the dead, Paul records in 1 Corinthians 15.
I have a question. How do you know that?
You know that in the same way that you know that George Washington was the first president of the United States, that you know that Adolf Hitler really committed the atrocities he did. It's called historical knowledge.
But those recent events those events you just cited happened much more recently.
Yes.
And are much more well documented.
Yes.
Than potentially 2,000 years of lost history.
Bingo, correct. But the great news is, in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we have a very, very reliable historical record based on over 5,800 Greek manuscripts, 10,000 manuscripts in the Latin Vulgate, and about 9,800 in Ethiopic, Coptic, Armenian, Syriac, Gothic, and Slavic.
Basically, like they were almost approved and given credibility to in the short term thereafter. And that added a more extensive proof to the story back then.
Essentially, they were like corroborated.
Yeah, that's
evidence.
That's kind of what I want to ask a quick question about that. And you brought up George Washington and the atrocities of World War II. We live in a place, a time and place right now, specifically in this moment, where the things that happened yesterday aren't even believed to necessarily be true. They're questioned. We live in a very strange place where there's been this infection of question everything to no end. And maybe it's an infection and maybe you'll say otherwise. Like, I've seen you even do this exercise before, like on George Jenko's show. Are we even sitting here? You know, like, and you didn't ask it in saying like we're not, but like
right.
how far can this go, right?
You bet.
And so, do you feel like that modern day questioning that, to be honest with you, is somewhat of it seems like an ego boost almost for the person questioning whatever they're
Yep.
questioning. Like, look, I can question this. I must be so woke and amazing, right? And such a free thinker. Do you think that's increasing the scrutiny on religious beliefs?
Yeah, we just had this big debate at Mississippi State in a lecture hall that went kind of crazy in there. And this guy stands up and tries to poke fun at Christianity, saying, you guys live in a culture of certainty. We live in a culture of free thinking and uncertainty. And you guys are bastardizing all different forms of knowledge by claiming this type of certainty. What he doesn't get is Christianity is all about doubt. Like, if any Christian comes up to you and says, you got to have certainty or you're not going to heaven, you're going to burn in the lake of fire. That's just a total joke. Like, the man after God's own heart, David, was questioning God all the time. Job, when he was going through suffering, questioning God all the time. Oh, doubting Thomas. Jesus said, don't doubt, obviously, because doubting Thomas was scolded. No, doubting Thomas had all the disciples who claimed eyewitness testimony to the resurrection coming to him, telling him exactly what happened. Finally, Jesus actually gives him the physical proof, says, touch the actual nail prints in my hands, thrust your hand into the spear wound in my side, then stop doubting and believe. So eventually he calls him out of his doubt. But to your good point, I've doubted more than my brothers all life long. And my 3-year-old daughter the other day was like, I don't believe in God. Like, I can't see, touch, taste. So I'm like, you're 3. What is going on? It's so in the genes. I just hate it.
You just took a bite of Play-Doh.
Exactly. Like, I don't even answer this. And so I love that about the Christian faith, unlike other faiths, which is, yeah.
So, but it sounds like this person that you were going back and forth with is talking about your certainty in the belief of Jesus, that he existed. That's what it sounds like. And I guess that's kind of was my question as well. How do you know? Because the preservation of history is, excuse me, freaking difficult. Extremely difficult, by the way. History is often written by the victors, right? And I don't know who the victor is in this case, but like, we have lost thousands of years of history to, I don't know, destruction, fire, torment, collapse, war,
Rain.
rage, rain. And so the further back we go, it is harder for me to put my seal of belief on something if I don't have a certain amount of evidence. Like, I'm one of those, and I'm not like, I'm just doubting. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just asking questions. And eyewitness testimony seems to be like the strongest actual receipt of these events that took place in years 0, by the way, right? I want to talk about that, pin that question. But yeah, you have a tremendous amount of faith in eyewitness testimony and the preservation of the records that contributed towards this story of Jesus Christ. Correct.
As well as Muhammad. If you tell me Muhammad never existed, I'm going to look you in the face and say, I'm sorry. The historical evidence is Muhammad was born about 570 AD and died about 632 AD.
What Muhammad claimed to be a messenger of God?
Prophet of God.
Prophet of God.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not believe in that God? Allah, I'd assume?
When you read the Quran, there are good reasons to question the total reliability of Muhammad. So therefore, I don't trust him too much. I have great respect for Muhammad in the way he taught give alms to the poor. I think that's tremendous. Muhammad had more respect for Jesus than the typical American does. Muhammad believed that Jesus was born of a virgin, that he ascended to heaven, he lived a sinless life, he's coming back a second time. Wow. But Muhammad did not subscribe to the deity of Christ, that Christ is actually God in human form.
So I asked someone who was pretty religious, who's close to me. I asked this person, I said, so what about people who don't believe in Jesus, but are still extremely religious and they subscribe to Allah or the Buddhist or whatever the deity is that they worship and believe in? And even just based on what you guys have told me today, if that person doesn't believe in Jesus Christ, I said to this person, are they going to hell? Are they doomed for the rest of eternity?
The only reason people go to hell is because they choose to live their life separate from God. And
Jesus? Sorry.
Yep.
In this
From
context,
Jesus, from God. Yep. Correct. So if I choose to reject Christ and live my life separate from him, I'm choosing to live my life separate from God. And I will, based on my decision, will spend eternity separate from him.
So you believe that anyone who doesn't accept Jesus Christ is going to hell?
Anybody who hears about Christ and has the opportunity to investigate Christ by reading the Gospels and chooses to reject Christ, Jesus clearly said, "For God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already because he's not believed in the name of God's one and only Son." That's what Jesus said.
It just isolates such a large portion of the population.
Good point. Jesus doesn't give his followers an option when it comes to loving people. If I'm a follower of Christ, I don't have an option to hate. I have to love. I have to accept. I have to be tolerant. In fact, if I'm going to follow a man who, as he's bleeding and dying on a cross, prays for his enemies, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," that's the essence of tolerance. So intolerance, bigotry, hatred is not an option for a genuine follower of Christ.
But isn't intolerance sort of rooted in Christianity a bit?
Okay, great question. This is a matter of truth. If I say to you, every religion leads to God, is that a truth claim?
No.
I would argue yes. What I'm saying is every religion leads to God, which means I contradict the Muslims, I contradict the Christians, I contradict the Jews. This is a truth claim.
Okay.
I, as a white Western male, am saying every religion leads to God. That's a truth claim. If I say to you, half the religions lead to God, is that a truth claim? Sure it is. I'm saying half are right, half are wrong. That's a truth claim. When Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me," is that a truth claim? Yeah, it sure is. You see, Logan, we all make truth claims. Everybody does. If you're against racism, you're making a truth claim. If you're against sexism, you're making a truth claim. If you're for equal housing opportunity, you're making a truth claim. You better not be prejudiced against someone because of their ethnic heritage when you rent out your apartment. So everybody makes truth claims. So the question is, what is the evidence supporting the truth claim that you buy into? Oh, I'm agnostic, Cliff. I don't believe anything. I'm sorry, that's impossible. Because you have to make ethical decisions every day.
Yeah.
And the ethical decisions you make every day tattles what you really believe about reality. I'm sorry, you got to go to funerals. Got to. Your loved ones are going to pass.
You don't believe it could be intuitive? This feels wrong, this feels right.
Or socially programmed, as we spoke about earlier.
Okay, good. Yes, society obviously impacts. But don't you and I have the utmost respect for Dr. Martin Luther King, for Abraham Lincoln, for Gandhi, who choose to follow their conscience instead of following the status quo? Don't we really respect people who say, you know something, there's a lot of social pressure on me to go this way. But I'm not going to go this way because I have a rational mind, I've got a conscience, and I'm going to think through this issue, and I'm going to do what I believe is best.
Well, we also appreciate those people now, like given,
Yes.
us, the four of us,
Yes.
white American men in 1950, right? Or
Yep.
1956. Like, who knows what somebody's going to kill me on this date.
No, we're
What? Day for what?
For MLK, are we close?
Yeah,
Are we close?
yeah.
At least
Right.
56? Does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
Who knows what our thoughts about his speakings would have been at that given time, which I'm bringing back. And by the way, obviously coming from a Christian, this is just an exercise here
Bet.
of, like what say you to these people who believe that some of that ethical behavior and moral behavior is just a socially programmed belief set from their existence on this planet. I think we've spoken about this a little bit today.
You
but-
bet. Well, it depends how you view the human being. If a human being is simply the sum total of the influences of their environment, we're not free. We've been programmed by our environment. Now, I agree environment has a powerful influence. I think that's obvious. I'm dressed the way I am because I grew up in the United States. So I've been influenced by my culture, by my society.
Connecticut. To be honest with you, Connecticut.
Sociopath.
Trust me, I would still be rocking both of these fits if I hadn't moved to LA. When I met Logan, I was wearing that exact same outfit. I swear.
But I don't think I have to follow my environment.
Right.
And I think there are more than enough examples from all four of our lives that at times we've followed our environment and at times we've contradicted our environment.
But I think you hit something different. So you hit social, you hit instinctual, and I go by evolutionary theory. I believe in evolution, micro.
Wait, what?
A lot of Christians don't.
Yeah, wait, whoa.
Well, so morally, you should be at the top of the food chain. You're a fighter, right? You've got power. The powerful, they eat the weak. Strong eat the weak.
His record is.
And so why is
I'm
it
1
that?
and 1. So I don't know.
So why is might makes right from an evolutionary perspective? Why do we as a society don't just say, why would you live for something like human rights? Why would you disadvantage yourself for the poor? No, from an evolutionary standpoint, you should slaughter them or at least just let them die off. Why would, if you have your baby, not back to your baby.
No, go ahead.
Perspective.
Go ahead, slaughter my unborn baby, guys.
So bad news, Logan. Unfortunately, God,
Like, the percentage was astronomical back in the Roman Empire of those who, if you didn't like your baby, you just threw it on a trash heap. Infanticide was that fits with evolution. It totally does.
It does actually.
Yeah. And so why morally, instinctually, like you're saying, if we just were raised red in tooth and claw, just live that way. Like Hitler lived that way. It makes sense to me. So if there is no God, I hate to say this, I don't mean to get dark real quick, but if there is no God and there is no Christ, I would try and be as consistent as possible with that worldview.
Fair. That makes sense. I want to pin the evolution. That surprises me that you believe in evolution. Pin that. What were we just? I wanted to touch on the intolerance part of just not even just Christianity, just organized religion in general. This is a qualm I have. This is where I think if again,
this is where you got heated.
I harbor resentment for certain parts of organized religion that make people either exclude others or lead to hatred and dispute, rage, feud. And in this particular podcast, actually, I had a moment where I was like mocking religion and Jesus in general. And by the way, the next 3 months of my life were hell. like literally, I felt the wrath of God instantly.
And I had to sit there and watch.
And I'll never do.
Dude, I can't help you.
And I'll never do it again.
fucked up.
And then by the end of it, I had it wasn't like a come to Jesus moment, but he definitely gave me guidance in a time where I needed guidance. Anyways, that was a verbal outpour of like a level of resentment that I felt for certain parts of, particularly in that scenario, Christianity, that I just didn't agree with. Man, like I'll be honest here. I don't love the sort of like exclusive club feeling. Oh, you can get into heaven if you believe in Jesus, but everyone else is doomed. I don't love that, right? Because there are people who have the same amount of faith in their religion as you guys do in yours, who are putting their time, effort, energy, investing their whole lives into believing in a deity. And like, according to you guys, they won't end up in a place that is paradise, even though they're leading a great life and have a great moral compass. Even the whole like gay marriage thing, like correct me if I'm wrong, right? But according to Christianity, like gay marriage isn't allowed to be a thing. And I know there's a lot of circumstances of like a gay child being resented and even alienated from their family because they have super religious parents. And I hear those stories and like I hurt for those people because a decision is being made based on a set of beliefs that people are so bound to, but then they throw the love aside for someone in their family.
Yep.
And that kind of bothers me.
Sure. But remember, Logan, the legitimacy of faith is not determined by passion. If you're passionate about thin ice on a lake, I really believe this thin ice is going to hold me up. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You walk out on that thin ice, you're going through, sir.
Yeah.
So the legitimacy of faith is determined by the trustworthiness of the object of your faith. If it's thick ice and you believe just a little and you step out on that ice, it's going to hold you up. You see, remember, I'm not going to heaven because I'm passionate. No. I'm a dirty, rotten sinner. Christ died on a cross for me. I have put my faith in him. I doubt, man. I sin every day. I am no perfect human specimen. I'm a dirty, rotten sinner. That's who I am.
Wait, Cliff, you keep saying that, but like you're I don't know you that well, right? So in my head, you're like painting a picture of someone that I just don't believe you are. Is that you being humble? Are you like a really,
right,
are you actually like a dirty, rotten sinner?
Probably his sins
All right.
might be different.
It comes down to how you define sin. No, I have never, not even dated, but I have lusted. No, I have never murdered anybody, but I have hated. No, I have never brought a whip down on the back of a black slave, not once. But I, as a white American, have had subtle racist attitudes. No, I don't live an incredibly opulent life, but I have been greedy. So I'm not this wonderful person that I wish everybody would believe that I am.
Fair.
I am a sinner. That is why I need Christ. Now, remember, it's not about my passion. It's not about my sincerity. That's the key issue when it comes to faith. It's about the reliability of the object of my faith. And you know that. If you trust a criminal, he's going to rip you off. If you trust a reliable person, that's good. Now, here's where it really gets tricky. Let's be a skeptic, right? Let's doubt. Okay, let's start right in here in this room. I doubt you and I doubt you.
I doubt
man.
me too.
All right.
I think I doubt him.
Now, there's nothing wrong with
I
doubting.
doubt myself enough for all.
Exactly. Okay. But I can push that too far. I can get to the point where I say, in spite of the evidence that you two guys are reliable, I'm not going to trust you. I'm going to be a hyper skeptic. Skepticism is good, but when it turns into hyper skepticism, watch out. Why is it so dangerous?
Yeah, why?
Because I'll never have the privilege of being your friend. If I'm always skeptical about you, if I'm always doubting you, I will miss my friendship with both you and him.
That's an extreme. You know, you like hyper skepticism.
Right.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
think I don't know if it's as extreme as you think. This is the person I was describing before. I'm so smart because I question everything. The issue with these people is you provide absolute proof that their questioning is leading them down the wrong path, and they're still unwilling to accept that as a proof point. So
hyper skepticism, sure, but
just
like
becoming more prevalent.
Just to question and doubt and not accept everything you see at face value as truth. I don't think
Jesus said you better do that.
Oh, he did?
He said, beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing. Inwardly, they are ferocious wolves, and they will eat your lunch.
Okay, let me tell you something about what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where a portion of that resentment started to grow. I had a person very close to me tell me that mistake that I referenced earlier happened because I had a statue of Buddha in my backyard. Took me aside and said, I know why all this bad stuff has been happening to you, and I know why Japan happened. I said, please tell me, what do you know? And he looked at this statue, giant Buddha statue, and he said what you just said. He said something about punishing those who worship false prophets, false idols, something like that. And in that moment, I thought that was so just bizarre and also kind of like distasteful to everyone who puts their life in the belief of Buddha and Buddhism. It was like a first like tip off to me, like, okay, I don't know if I'm willing to subscribe to like a religion that is alienating an entire belief system, or even just because I have a statue in my backyard. And intuitively, I felt like it was just so ridiculous. Like how could I then subscribe to this one religion, right? Because that in itself is intolerance. No?
There's no way that anybody knows that because you have a statue of Buddha in your backyard, this horrible thing happened to you. That's total presumptuous. It's false.
it was wrong. Got rid of it. And terrible kept happening. Like it just it's.
Did we get rid of it?
I think so.
totally.
Yeah, someone took it.
We tried to give it to Russell
Russell Brand. He said no.
He said no.
And then I think someone took it. I mean, you don't own it anymore, and you still are getting.
Sucks.
It's ridiculous that he said that.
I-
I'm sorry he said that to you.
No, I definitely thought. I was like,
Yeah.
what? It was on the ground.
Yeah, you had it all messed
Dude,
up.
I don't know. I'm not like Buddhist. I thought it was cool. Bro, and by the way, that was I was like, I saw it at the store. I was like, this is look
Well,
good in my backyard. And then I was like, this is why I'm being punished just because I made a purchase about a garden statue?
Nope.
But it is. But even you're saying it's presumptuous, but it's what I mean. You just cited the same thing he said.
No. When Jesus says beware of false prophets, he's talking about don't trust them because they'll rip you off.
Like the guys who stand in front of Santa Monica Beer with
No, but-
megaphones.
no, but-
those guys.
Well, some
I
of
don't
them
know
are
those guys,
some
but
of them are
you have
preaching
to.
the word, but
Yeah.
it would be a different story if you had been a Christian, you had purchased that statue, and then started practicing a belief set to Buddha, right? Instead of, I think backing up, what he's looking for is some sort of understanding of this code of intolerance that exists within standardized religion sets, right? So like, why is there a Christian belief towards man and woman being the only union that is acceptable? Why is a belief set on abortion and X, Y, and Z scenarios?
Bingo.
Like, what? And once again, not me asking, but this is
It's
been
me
a
asking.
big thing for
Through
him.
Mike.
Right.
Abortion
I'm
is
just trying to- I'm
another
trying to-
one.
Yeah.
Put it together.
Well, so the difficult question is, what is the purpose for which God made us? And if there is no God, life is a crapshoot. It's meaningless. But if God created us for a purpose, then we better figure what that purpose is. Now, according to Jesus Christ, life is not a cosmic crapshoot. According to Christ, life has been given us by God for a purpose, to love God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves, is the way he summarized it. Okay? Then he gets more specific. When it comes to sexuality, we read in Genesis 2:24 that when God created us, he created us male and female and said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So there's a very positive statement of why God created our sexuality, male and female. God could have had procreation happen at the end of a Q-tip. When a man and a woman mix their earwax, little babies could have been born that way.
That would be crazy.
He didn't choose to do it that way.
Ridiculous
He
way
chose
to
to
have
create us
kids.
male and female, and that is a gift from him. It's a beautiful gift.
I never thought of this before, but does an omission from the scripture indicate a sin or a non-accepted way of producing a certain outcome? I.e., God presented to us Adam and Eve and said, man shall marry woman. But I'm sure you're going to give me passages, but was there anything in Genesis that said, but man shall not marry man or woman should not marry woman? Like,
No.
I'm sure.
Genesis communicates that to have sex outside of a lifelong commitment between one man and one woman
Okay.
is not cool.
Got it.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Sorry, I'm gonna mess up on the scripture a little bit.
What-
Today. I need to
what's the-
brush back up.
What's the exact scripture? He did say it's not cool.
Well, no,
You're exactly right.
what did
That's
he-
not in the Hebrew.
What did he say?
We're turning into Hebrew scholar here, man.
Look at that. God said,
Genesis 7,
this is not cool.
Being gay ain't cool. I don't think that was. That wasn't in there, man.
L's in the chat. God. What is it though? What is the actual? What is?
Well, Genesis 2:24 is a clear statement about he creates us male and female to become husband and wife. Then in Genesis chapter 19, different sexual immorality is communicated there, different forms of sexual immorality.
But why would God then create a male who's attracted to a male if, like, God created all of us? Why would he create someone that goes directly against, like guys, like being gay isn't a choice. No one, I think few people are like, oh, I'm attracted to the same sex. I believe.
Isn't
and
that
so-
changing though? Because
Say-
I think the
say again?
LGBTQ movement not too long ago said it's not a choice, but the queer movement now is saying it is a choice.
Look.
And they're like,
Hey.
they're like hating each other.
This is way above my pay grade. I don't know. I believe people are made that way. I happen to be heterosexual. I'm attracted to women. Attracted to one woman now.
Way to go.
I believe you're attracted to who you're attracted to. Granted, like, yeah, things are super fluid now, and like people are making decisions based on like their environment, what they see, whatever. But like, I would argue that, like, if I think certain people are just attracted to who they are attracted to. So why would God create someone in his image who goes directly against his codex that he created?
I didn't expect you to look at me right there.
All right.
No. Well, I'll just say, briefly, I think it's, again, I think you have to, the people that I know who are SSA, same-sex attraction, the ones who have decided to live a life of celibacy, devoted fully to Christ, they have claimed this level of their own personal flourishing that is just beyond imagination. Like, I've talked to some of these people, I've read a lot of their testimonies, and so I don't think ultimately that it excuses the pain, because we know different scholars who are incredible New Testament scholars who, based off the experience of a close loved one becoming gay or being born gay, they have changed their very interpretation of Scripture. And so it's so hard once you, like, just what you said, I totally agree in terms of how the experience plays into your own emotions, because you feel just tragedy for this person who's actually, if you're going to tell them the Mike Pence conversion therapy is what you have to go through to get out of this homosexuality, like, that's tough.
That's where I start to like harbor resentment.
But remember, like, the Bible talks well over 300 times about heterosexual sin and only 6 times about homosexual sin. And so Christians want to put homosexuality on this crazy pedestal, and I think it's just because they find a level of disgust in it, which is really sad. I mean, all sin there's a form level of disgust that they would say.
Shame.
But shame, exactly. But for us as heterosexuals, we got to look at it as we have way more sin to wrestle with in many ways.
I don't want to make this like a whataboutism thing, you know?
Right,
like
right.
I'm asking specifically.
He's going to go another direction. Ask
Like,
him. I know the direction he's going.
All right. See, when you listen to yourself talk the way you did, I think there's a presupposition you've got, which is God created me the way I was born. And the Bible contradicts that. Meaning by that, I was not born with a desire to forgive.
That's a cool dead.
You hurt me bad enough, I'm coming after you.
Yeah.
That's naturally what I do. So then I've got
So
to ask myself
cool.
the question, my desire to come after you and seek revenge, is that what God created me to do? Or did God create me to forgive? I was not born with a heterosexual drive to have sex with just one woman. I was born with a heterosexual drive to have sex with as many good-looking women as I could get into bed with me. This whole idea that God created me to be this way, no. I am born with something that Jesus in the Bible calls a readiness to sin factor. When I was a little kid playing in a sandbox with a buddy,